Okay, back at it again. I wanted to pick up where I left off, which is Rain has just met Lear and Candle. And also Lear has been reunited with his sister Nor. And the crew of the Clock of the Time Dragon, we've got Maluma. Everybody's kind of finally congealing. We do have Iskanari, which is the goose that is the familiar for Lear. If you remember from Son of a Witch, he kind of self-appointed witch is familiar. He kind of comes down and informs them that the Congress of Birds have informed him that Dorothy has been apprehended and she is being taken to Munchkinland to be put on trial. So that's taking the opening of the book and kind of bringing it into this narrative as we continue. And so they are all deciding that they need to kind of move on. Things are getting a little hot. They need to move forward in the story. They're going to start making their way towards further into the Vinkus, which is where they are right now. They have left Quadling Country. As they're going down the road, there is an event that takes place where the Clock of the Time Dragon does give one final prophecy where they're talking about the Oz Emperor Pastorius. The Clock of the Time Dragon just kind of woke itself up like it needed to say something. And so they all kind of just watch, and it tells the story of Pastorius being, overthrown by the Wizard of Oz when he took power. But they already knew that story. What they didn't know was what came afterward, and it shows the baby, the lost queen, the Princess Ozma Tipitarius, being abducted by the invading army, being handed to a sorceress, and they just see them exit off stage. They don't know that the child is dead, but it's presumed that the baby's lost to history. So it's at that point that there's some kind of event where they're all attacked, and only Tay, the otter, and Rain can perceive what it is that's attacking them. They're kind of like, I think she describes them as these like ethereal ghost-like spider creatures that are kind of, pulling at her, trying to get at her, or maybe they're trying to get at the Grimoire. It's not really clear, but she's kind of fighting them off. Nobody can tell what's going on. Everybody else, they're kind of fighting it empty air. They know that they're being attacked, but they can't tell from where. But Tay can see them, and apparently this is what they were made for. So that's the purpose of this little otter in the story, is that he is protecting Rain with all he has, or they, because we don't know the gender of the otter. That's specifically said in the story. And so as a result of this attack, they're all recovering. It was the Clock of the Time Dragon was definitely busted up in this, and it's probably never going to function again. So they need to move forward and try to get to a place where they can try to repair it or put it back together or figure out what they're going to do. And so as they're going through, they are, they're trying. Oh, they are reunited at this point now with a character that we're all familiar with A Lion Among Men, and also from all of the stories. So it's Sister Apothecary from the Cloister of St. Glinda. She's no longer a nun because of, she was left to fend for herself. She's like, well, screw you guys. If that's how you feel, I'm out. So after she got Lear and Trism out of the cloister, she herself escaped. And this is, we're finding out her story. She tells us a little bit about what happened after they left. But she has now changed her name. She's no longer Sister Apothecary. She is Little Daffy. And the dwarf, Mr. Boss, is just so bereft over the destruction of this Clock of the Time Dragon that I think at one point it just falls into Kelswater Lake and is just lost permanently. So he just decides, all right, well, if the clock's done, I'm done. There's, I exist only for the clock, so I have nothing left. And he marries Little Daffy on the spot, and they just kind of agree to join each other on whatever path, it presents it before them. And the whole party kind of sort of decides to separate. So they're all deciding it's safer to split ways. And they're all going to different parts. So the first group we have is going to be Lear and Candle, because they're still on the run. They're still being hunted by the Emerald City forces. And so they go. They leave. And they can't take Rain with them, because if they get caught, they don't want to have her with them as well, because they can't know that they have a child, one. Two, they don't, if something happens to him, she is the next Throp. she is the inheritor of the will of Elphaba, and they can't both go down at the same time. So they choose to separate, and Nora says that she'll take Rain, and she'll take her actually to Shiz. And so they decide to go to Shiz to see if they can figure some way to keep Rain safe until she's old enough to kind of fend for herself. Lear and Candle go their separate way. Mr. Boss, Burr, and Little Daffy, they decide that they're going to go to Munchkinland to try to see if they can figure out how to save Dorothy from what's going on with her. So their story is the one that we're going to take up next, because they're all parting ways. So going to Munchkinland, we've got Burr, Little Daffy, and Mr. Boss. And they arrive in, I want to say Center Munch, or, one of the capital. And we are introduced to a new character. She's not a new character. She's had cameos in the other books, both Lion Among Men. Actually, Son of a Witch, and actually in Wicked, I think. Or maybe it was Lion Among Men. Maybe she wasn't in Wicked. But we meet Mombi. Now, Mombi has assumed the high seat of Munchkinland in the power vacuum left behind by the death of the Throp sisters. So we know that the Civil War was started because Nessa Rose accidentally or unintentionally interfered in an event on the border of their lands that kind of instigated the first steps that eventually did lead to the Civil War. But it's really all about resources, and they were defending Munchkinland because the Emerald City just kind of wanted it at the time during, when the wizard was in power. And then just kind of over time, the Emerald City has always just wanted that resource because they can't go to Quadling Country. They already raped it of all of its rubies. Now it's time to get what Munchkinland has, and that's water, I believe, and that would be Restwater, the only good freshwater lake. And they need that to keep agriculture going, to keep the city flowing with fresh water. Maybe they need it, for hygiene purposes. You can't have running water if there's no water, right? So the Civil War started because of Nessa Rose, and Nessa Rose only took power because Elphaba declined. There is another Throp, but he's already the emperor of the Emerald City, of Loyal Oz, and that would be Shell. And Shell doesn't have a legitimate claim to the seat anyway, because everybody is aware that Elphaba had a son, so Shell is now no longer the next in line. That would be Lear, because he is the daughter of the original eminent Throp, or he is the son. So with that said, there is no eminence to control Munchkinland. So Lamambi has come in and taken over. Nice little explosion there, 4th of July. Lamambi has come in and she is taking power. She's using, the power of politics to kind of take that seat. We learn a little bit about her. She has this boy with her, and the boy is kind of like her little whipping boy. And you'll remember Lamambi. Originally, we met her in a Son of a Witch, walking along the roads, but appearing as an old hag. Interesting. With a boy that Lear had a brief exchange with, and he did explain his name was Tip. And so we met Tip just as a passing cameo with Lamambi, but Lamambi never introduced herself. We just saw an old woman who was basically very protective and possessive. So now we've got Lamambi as this regal character who has now somehow found her way into power in Munchkinland in the vacuum left behind. So she is putting on a mock trial, a kangaroo court, so to speak, to put Dorothy on trial to try to drum up some patriotism, some nationalist propaganda by pointing out that Dorothy murdered a national hero in Nessa Rose. So at the conclusion of Wicked, with the wizard leaving, Nessa Rose was kind of put on a pedestal as a martyr for the cause. And so Nessa Rose being murdered by Dorothy when the house fell, once it was said that Dorothy had returned to Oz, Lamambi needed to get her quickly and put her on trial. And so the trial was meant to be a show because she just needed it to have some kind of distraction to get that nationalistic fire lit under the Munchkinlanders, because her ultimate goal is she wants them to rally behind her to invade the Emerald City, and to do so they need to conscript the animals into their army against their will. And so the Munchkinlanders, they're using this trial of Dorothy to kind of get everybody, you know, this mass hysteria whipped up to get them to agree, let's go burn it down. And so Dorothy is kind of naive, kind of stupid. She says the truth. She just speaks what happened, but her words are twisted and everything is spun against her. And so with Burr being there, Burr was a member of Dorothy's crew. He was the Cowardly Lion of the original crew. And so this is after she killed Nessa Rose. She's also kind of guilty of killing the original eminent Throp, and that would be Elphaba. And he was kind of there too, but it was at the order of the wizards, so they're kind of let off the hook. But he is asked, Burr is asked to give testimony in the trial on behalf of Dorothy as a character witness. Little Daffy also had a passing interaction with her when she was at the cloister before they went to Kiamako, and also the dwarf had an interaction with her at some point too, or at least he spoke on behalf of the Clock of the Time Dragon, which was a part of the whole story anyway. So Lamambi is just hyping it up. Just everything they're saying to try to defend Dorothy is falling on deaf ears when it comes to Munchkinland. We know how that goes. Look at current times, right? So what ends up happening is Lamambi does finally get the crowd whipped up. She says that they're going to conscript all of the animals, and she casts a spell that will prevent animals from being able to escape Munchkinland without really bad physical consequences. During all of the hype and everything, the lion, the dwarf, and little Daffy do rescue Dorothy, and they do get her out, and at great peril, the lion does make it through that barrier, just barely, but they do escape Munchkinland before, the quote in the book is, before things get ugly, which is a slight nod to foreshadowing what's going to happen later. With that said, now we're going to flip over to what happened at Shiz. So Nor is taking Rain to protect her, to hide her. And so the irony here is that Nor is pretending to be what she actually is, and that is the heiress of a noble family from the Vinkus with a lot of money. All of those things are true, but the story of Fiyero and everything is kind of lost to history. Nobody knows what his relation was to Elphaba, or even that he was the father of the son of Elphaba. So her, as Eleonora, she is the last surviving daughter of the royal family of the Vinkus. So she's bringing this little girl to one of, I think it's St. Proud's is the name of the school at Shiz. And think of Shiz as like Oxford. It's like a city. It's like a college city. But St. Proud's is the actual college that's in the university. St. Proud's, just like, you know, when they went to Shiz, St. Proud was originally boy-girl, but now it's just an all-girls school. And they said that they will not accept Rain because it wasn't enrollment time. They'd have to wait until the next year. But Eleonora says, you see this bag of money? You're going to do what I ask you to do, and I'm going to donate all this money to you for no reason other than you helped a sister out. And they go, ooh, money, yeah, you can have whatever you want. So they took her money, they saw her out, they thanked her for everything, and then they treated Rain like she was trash. So there were no empty rooms for her to join the other girls, probably for the best because she was a little rough around the edges. So they stuck her in the abandoned boys' dormitory. Well, why is it abandoned? It's a country in a civil war. All the men are at war. So she's in this abandoned, empty boys' dormitory, but somebody keeps stealing her stuff. I think stealing her food or stealing some of her possessions. Or she has this little tiny shell. I think it does become more important in the later Rain trilogy after Wicked Years books. But the shell was enchanted later. But she's always saved it, like she stole it. And it went missing, and so she tracked it down and finds that this orphan boy, has been kind of living up there like a little vagabond, stealing food and stuff and hiding up in the attic, and he had a collection of all the things that he keeps stealing, and one of them was her shell. And so she kind of confronts him. He's actually sick, I think, and she like nurses him back to health, and then they kind of hold each other hostage and kind of blackmail each other. If you don't tell, I won't tell, sort of a thing, and they kind of grow and bond. And then over time, as she's learning things, she kind of teaches him some stuff, but, she's kind of maturing. She's getting older. We're seeing we're seeing her kind of follow the path of Elphaba, but rather than being self-righteous, she's just kind of stubborn. And she's brute forcing her way through adversity, but in a different way than Elphaba. Elphaba did it because she was green and everybody judged her, but Rain's doing it because, you know, everybody treats her like she's ignorant, and she's actually quite talented. As we progress down that path, Tip is, and we learn it's Tip, so it's the same Tip as was with Mombi. We learn that Tip has, he can kind of like be invisible in the background or whatever. So he can kind of sneak around, and he just looks like another one of the stable hands or whatever, and he'll go steal food or steal things. So he's in the process, I think he was actually sneaking to go to the bathroom or something like that, if I remember correctly. And the headmistress was having an argument with some lord, I think it was her brother, was in... he had come into the university and was saying that the headmaster had to go to be some minister of war, and she's like, you can't take him away from us, who's going to defend us? And so right there on the spot, he just grabbed the first male that was nearby, and it happened to be Tip trying to get by to go to the bathroom. She says, well, this young man is now your protector, you are now in charge of security and everything, and blah blah blah, you're going to be here to protect all the girls while I take these men to go to war. And Tip's like, and the headmistress is like, who are you? So anyway, he's kind of thrust into this, no questions asked. It kind of gives him a legitimate reason to be there. He no longer has to hide in the shadows. So the story can progress beyond them just sneaking around, doing the secret garden thing. And I almost said Elphaba. And Rain can now start to evolve into her scholastic self, learning and challenging and educating herself about the politics. And she does grow up, so it does do like a little time skip. And I want to say she's around 13, 14 now at this point. They end up going to town. She finds a map at some secondhand store, and it's a bear. As we know, bears forget things, but they made an agreement. He's like, you can't have that one. That's for my family. But if you come back and ask me again and I've forgotten this conversation, then I will give it to you. And so she's like, okay, that's a deal. Obviously, they do that later. I don't recall what the map led to. I don't think it was a super important point. I think it had some implications to the lore of the world. I think probably having a lot to do with the chancel of the ladyfish, or some kind of like the god of the golden carp that was under Kiamako or something like that. So with that said, I almost said Lear. Tip comes in and kind of interrupts this interaction while she's at the store, and it starts raining outside, and all the girls are gonna get into this taxi cab to get back to the school. Well, he's supposed to protect them, and they're like, oh, what if this taxi just kidnaps all the girls and we never see them again? You're responsible for that, right? He's like, you know what, we're gonna have to take that gamble. There's no room for us. And Rain is like, you know what, I don't mind walking in the rain if you'll walk with me. And so he chooses to follow her to make sure that she gets back safe walking, and just trusting that this taxi driver is going to take them back to the school. And the girls do get there, back there, but it's wartime. You never know what's going to happen. All those girls could have been stolen and taken into, the sex trade or something. But it gives us a chance to see this kind of, I don't want to say budding romance, but this bonding between them. They're no longer children. They're kind of starting to be affected by the decisions of the world around them, and they're kind of affected by where their paths are going to end up leading them. And it's at this point, I think, that they start divulging some of their secrets, not fully, but a little bit here and there. Tip shares the fact that he is basically the adopted son of Lamambi, the leader of Munchkinland, but more of like a abusive relationship. That's why he ran away. And Rain kind of shares that she is, I want to say, the daughter of Kiamako, but not necessarily that she's the son of Lear, or the daughter of Lear, the son of the witch. She leaves that part out. But there's a rumor going around that Lamambi has gotten her hands on a magical book. Now, if you remember, at some point, the book stopped participating in the story. And like I said, you're going to wonder, how did it get there? Where has it been this whole time? If you recall, when they were leaving Munchkinland during the revolt to get into Quadling country, that's when the book kind of got lost. and I think I skipped over a part there, but the reason why the book was with them in the first place was because they had to get rid of it. Glinda had used the book to cast a spell onto the lake while they were trying to cross it to invade Munchkinland on the boats with the dragons, but she needed the girl's help because the girl could read it and Glinda could not. That was the spell that they were reading, Calling Winter Upon Water. So thinking back to her childhood, Rain is thinking, oh gosh, maybe that's the book. I've lost the book. She's found it. I got to get my hands on the book. They don't know where to go, but they just know that they got to leave. So they decide that they're both going to leave separately. She's like, don't follow me. And he's like, well, I'm not following you. Which way are you going? And she's like, well, I'm going that way. And he's like, well, I also am going that way, but I'm not following you. It's kind of cute. It's romantic. They are following each other. And so they do go on this little kind of hobbit journey that does eventually lead them back to Kiamoko, because it's the only place they can think of to go back to, because they can't just walk into Munchkinland. So she's assuming that Nor, after leaving her at Shiz, had probably made her way back to Kiamoko for the first time ever since being abducted by Commander Cherrystone in the first book. They get back to Kiamoko, and they come to learn that the Mr. Boss, Burr, Little Daffy, and Dorothy now have also arrived at Kiamoko at the same time as Rain and Tip, and they come to find that Nanny, Nanny is still alive. God knows how old she is, but also Chistery, who has also been caring for Nanny this entire time in his old age while he's digressing. And the place is just a mess. The other monkeys are shitting everywhere and is just not kept up. But that's when Chistery explains that Nora's not there because she was killed. She died. And she died because it was during a... I can't recall if she died or if she killed herself, but it was because Lear got caught. They don't know who caught him. We do, but they don't know who caught him. And so they took him and Candle. They let Candle go, and because she really has nothing to do with Elphaba. And they don't care about her. They didn't know anything about the child. So they let her go, and she just kind of went away. We assume she went maybe to the cloister or somewhere else. But we know that Lear got kidnapped and that Nora's now dead. And I want to think that it probably was suicide, if I remember correctly. I'm going to have to double check that one. Leave a comment if you know. But either she was killed or it was suicide. I just remember it being really tragic. And it really hit Rain very hard because they had finally just got their family back together. She was finally old enough to kind of speak her mind and to participate in the world, only to have everything torn apart again. So now she's missing the book. She's missing her father. She's missing Nor. She's got Burr. She's got Tip. What can she do? Who's the only person she can think of that would have any influence, that would want to take Lear? Maybe Shell, the Emperor of Oz in the Emerald City, of Loyal Oz. So she makes up her mind that she's going to go to the Emerald City to figure out what's going on there. And Tip says that he will go on, back down and kind of submit himself again to Lamambi to see if he can maybe steal the book from her to get it out of Munchkinland, to get it to her. And they agree to part ways. Dorothy says that she'll go with Rain to the Emerald City. And so that's where that, I'm gonna go ahead and, end this video here because we're getting to 24 minutes. But that's where we're going to pick up the next one, where the next story arc kind of takes place, coming to the conclusion of what's going on here. So again, thank you so much for your patience waiting for these stories to come out. I know I did promise them. It did take me a few 6 months to come out with this update, but I'm really glad that I had to remember everything by kind of rereading a synopsis. So I appreciate everything that you guys have done for me. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the compliments. Thank you for the comments. I'll go ahead and read the other chapter or the other books after this. I know that Gregory Maguire just came out with a new book, Elphie, that presumably goes over her childhood. I'm assuming maybe when they were in Quadling Country. But look for those to come in the future. But stay tuned. We're going to have a part 3 coming in just a moment. And I'm going to talk about the conclusion of book 4, Out of Oz. Thank you so much.